guys, this is Rebecca with Focus on America for our very first edition of Jump Right In. You may say, why jump right in? Because that's the way we do everything. We don't fluff anything up. We speak truth, tell the truth, and jump right in. There's always a time to be open, honest, and direct. That's what we want to do. We want to give our members the opportunity to be open, honest, direct, to ask the questions that are important to them and their family, to stand up for their liberty. So today, we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to give you a little bit more information about what we do, what our organization does, how it started, and we have some very special guests with us today. We have Bob Wretch and Sarah Enriquio with us today. They are members that were not charter members, but they were very close behind those charter members. They are joining us today, and they're going to be talking about how they found Focus on America, the struggles that they have seen in our political system, and very briefly tell you things and ways that you can be involved. This will lead up to our candidate interviews where we will have candidates and interview them and jump right in with the tough questions with them as well. So I will take this opportunity to introduce to you Sarah Ann Riccio. Sarah Ann, why don't you take a few seconds and tell us about you, how you got involved with Focus on America, and some of the struggles and things you've seen.
Sure. I found Focus on America by fluke. I had a brick and mortar business and that I opened in 2018, and in October of 2020, we were 8 months into our governor shutting the state down, issuing mandates that were unconstitutional, ruining half of my business, ruining many, many small businesses in the state, controlling who could come into your business, how many people could come into your business at any given time. And 8 months into it, I was completely fed up and ready to do something about it. I didn't know what. I happened to see a post on Facebook for Focus on America, and there was a guy running called Dean Odell, and he was going to be at a meeting in November 2020. And I said, I've got to go to this meeting because I've got to get behind somebody who can replace the governor that we have that is destroying our state. So I showed up with my husband, and I walked into a room full of unmasked people and said, "These are my people. Where have they been?" I felt like I had just walked onto another planet after 8 months of insanity, and it was very, very refreshing. And so that's how I found Focus on America. And obviously, I didn't look back. I continued to go to meetings and get more involved, and I'm very glad that I did.
Oh, well, we're glad you did too.
So,
So, Bob, why don't you tell us about a little bit about yourself and how you found Focus on America?
Well, I was a retired engineer for the second time, and right after the 2020 election, I became very irritated to the point where it was starting to bother my health. And instead of staying home and being frustrated and raising my blood pressure, I decided, hey, I need to go out and do something. Maybe I can't really affect Washington, D.C., but I could start at the local area and get involved in the Huntsville, Madison area and try to make a difference. About the same time, I shotgunned many different calls to politicians and offices and organizations. And then one day I walked into Sarah Ann's wine shop, and she looked at me and said, "Hey, you may want to look these people up." And I got invited to the first meeting you guys had there. And it was something that just took off. I found a home. I found an organization that I think can really make a difference, and hopefully we'll be able to find out if we did come primary day in a couple weeks.
So both of you guys, let me go back, and I should have said this to begin with, so I'll go backwards for those that do not know. Focus on America is a grassroots organization that was formed to promote individual liberty, family values, and the U.S. Constitution by actively participating in the political process. So who we are, Focus on America, is inspired and compelled by our forefathers. These are men who risk everything to ensure our freedoms. We encourage Americans to be informed members of their communities, to recruit and develop candidates to restore God-given, constitutionally guaranteed liberties, and to replace elected officials who do not represent their constituency or American values. And that's something that you touched on, Bob. So we worked trying to get bills passed to protect our rights, our freedoms, our liberties during the legislative sessions. And both of you guys were very helpful in coming to Montgomery and supporting those efforts. You guys made calls, you made emails. Bob, why don't you tell us about your first experience going to the State House and a little bit about what you saw and experienced firsthand?
It was a very eye-opening experience. It was like you opened up Pandora's box of a plethora of information, something that I'd never realized how much influence the lobbyists and I don't want to get too negative, but the corruption that goes on there. I had no idea, absolutely no idea. And we went down there to witness a Senate subcommittee hearing on one of the bills that you were promoting. And we had, I think, close to 100 people in that room, and it went into overflow. So when the folks came up from the general session and started to meet in the subcommittee, all of a sudden there were as many, another 50 or 60 people with computers and dressed in suits and ties. And I thought at first they were newspapermen or reporters. And I asked a couple of people, I said, who are all these people? And they said they were lobbyists. So there were just as many lobbyists in there as there were folks like you and I, the voters and the constituents of these people. And I saw firsthand the type of influence, let's be nice, the type of influence they have over the representatives and the senators there. I was shocked and extremely dismayed at how politics and what really goes on down in Montgomery.
Sarah Ann, how about your experience?
I was there that day as well, and it was definitely eye-opening. I was thrilled and very emotional about the fact that we had so many constituents that were in that room that were there, supporting the bill for health freedom and really urging the legislators and the senators to do the right thing and protect us. And when the lobbyists came in, it was overwhelming to realize how much power they had. And one of the projects that we have started with Focus on America is a candidate research tool that you can link on our website. And I started doing a spreadsheet for that initially and putting the information together with candidates and their information and their campaign finance records. And what I found was overwhelmingly how controlled the representatives and the senators are by lobbyists, by political action committees, by unions, how controlled they were by the groups that were donating money to their campaigns. It still is very, very overwhelming, and that is something that we have got to find a way to change, to really make this about we the people.
Absolutely. So the takeaway from that day and from several days since then, because you guys have been very active in that, I think we've seen some positives, which I would say we've seen more people participate, not maybe enough as we would like to see, definitely not as many as we would like to see active participants. But we've also, the flip side of that is the ugly has been exposed. And our job is to jump right in and expose that to the people who haven't been there or who think this is just going to take care of itself, or Alabama is a conservative state, so it's not going to happen here. Well, Alabama is a conservative state on the surface. However, we are one of the most corrupt states in the nation. So with that being said, what have you guys come away with from maybe attending meetings or being a part of it that has helped you in your decision-making process as a constituent, as an informed voter? Bob?
What has made a difference? The exposure of what really goes on there, like I said, was an eye-opener. And because I went to as many meetings as I can where the candidates that are running for the primary, I went there and would meet them and listen to them more than once, sometimes 3 or 4 times. And during the course of the conversations that I had with them, me as an individual voter got to see beyond the curtain of what they were trying to present to the voter. And I saw a different picture of who these people are, and what you see on TV and what you see on the political ads and the flyers, for the most part, for many candidates, is completely different of the type of person they are and what capabilities they have. So I made, from what, I'll give you, Mike Durant was a good example. I saw him in November speak at one of the GOP meetings, and I thought he was a great candidate. He had all the right, um, not characteristics, but he had the right resume to run for office and be a senator. But later on, when I got to do some research behind that and find out who he was funded by, I came away completely different and said, Mike Durant is not for me. And I had to look for other people. So that was an example of getting to know these people and doing your own research.
And Sarah Ann, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Bob. I think it's very eye-opening because, I've always been someone who's voted. I've voted ever since I was eligible to vote, and felt like I was doing my part and involved, but I was not involved. Looking back now, and seeing what people are, what's put in front of people, the millions and millions of dollars in TV ads that are put in front of people to sway them to vote for a particular candidate, was eye-opening to understand what was going on. And it really is about you digging in a little deeper, because of all of the things that are going on in our country. We can't just listen to what people are telling us anymore. We shouldn't have been to begin with, but I was just as guilty as everyone else, anyone else who did that. So we have to make our own decisions, and we have to dig a little deeper, and jump right in, as you say, to find the truth out behind the candidates that you're looking at.
Those are excellent points from both of you, and I've experienced that myself. It's like you see, they're going to tell you what they what they think you want to hear. I'm Christian, conservative, the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, and those are great things. Those are things we stand for. But what is the plan behind it? How are you going to do? What are you actually going to do about it? When you get asking the tough questions, it seems like there are more questions than answers. And so many times, myself included, as I would cast that vote, I would cast the one that I thought was best, but then these people are elected and they ride off into the Montgomery sunset just to become part of the good old boy establishment network. And, we have so many volunteers that have put in so many hours, and we need help from regular, everyday people who are tired of the same old thing. I mean, because what is the definition of insanity? It's worn out. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I mean, we had children that were masked, people who lost their jobs, people who couldn't get early treatment for COVID. Our governor, our lieutenant governor, were absolutely, they were deciding who, and our state health officer were deciding who was essential and who wasn't. God said everyone is essential. So who are they to say that someone or some family or some business isn't essential because it's essential to that family? So we need to take back those God-given rights. And you guys have done an excellent job of doing the homework for people so they can go and see who made those donations. So they need to check out that on our webpage at focusonamerika.us. At the header, you'll see how you can search candidates with their new web app because of all the hard work you guys put in. And you'll also be able to see the gubernatorial debate that you guys worked so hard on and was such a huge success. You can see that there. We have these podcasts coming up. We really want to make informed voters. So Sarah Ann, if you could give one piece of advice, and I know that's hard, if you could give one piece of advice to a potential voter or someone who's fed up with this but they don't know where to start, what would advice would you give them? And then we'll go to Bob and let him answer that same question.
I would say get involved, obviously, with Focus on America. I mean, there's lots of groups out there that are trying to do the same thing. I have found Focus on America to be very successful, and I feel like our goals and missions are slowly being accomplished. And I feel like we all work very, very well together, and we have amazing volunteers, an amazing group of people. Get involved with a group to not feel like you're completely alone, but also to have support and to have some guidance. Again, we've worked very hard on our website and putting information together for people to be able to access, but having a kind of a support system, a patriotic support system that with people that have the same values as you and want the same things, I think is hugely helpful.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that, I want to go back to the beginning. It was very refreshing to know that it was a fellowship to be with patriots when you walked into that meeting. And for the first time in months, you were able to walk in mask free, no social distancing, to state your opinions without being judged and to be encouraged. And I think Focus on America and all of our members do a great job of encouraging each other at meetings and not at meetings. I think they're a great group of people. Of course, we are a bit biased, but I'm going to go to Bob. And Bob, what advice would you give that? And then I'd like for you to talk about, I've had people ask, and I'd like a perspective from you guys because sometimes maybe I'm too close to it. They've also asked, there are plenty of Republican groups. Focus on America doesn't say that they're a Republican group, and I'm not knocking Republican groups because they are great. They've served very well, and they've done a lot of good things. But what are the differentiators or the value adds from being in a group that isn't necessarily tied to a Republican Party or a Democrat Party or any other type of party for that matter? If you guys could discuss that, we'll go to Bob, let him give his best advice, and then answer that question. Then Sarah Ann will come back to you and let you answer that differentiating question.
Before I started going to the GOP meetings, Republican Women's Meeting group, the Tennessee Valley GOP, and then I started going to Focus on America, and I saw a distinct difference. The GOP was there to promote GOP candidates, and it was I don't want to say a front, but it was a forum for them to promote all GOP candidates, not differentiating, but with the individuals. But Focus on America dug deeper behind the curtain to find out more information about those folks, and then present that information to the membership. And as far as membership's concerned, Rebecca, maybe you could mention this to the folks too. You started off almost a year ago with 8-9 people, and we have over, I don't want to give you the number, but you can give that number. We have grown tremendously. Our monthly meetings, we have anywhere from 70 to 110 people at the Black Patch Distillery to meet the candidates and hear what we say, and also share information about the bills that Rebecca, you tell us on the specific status and who voted for them and who didn't vote for them. So it's not just the candidates, it's bills, it's local events, and things like that. And lastly, on a separate, different subject, you mentioned early on that Focus on America has exposed, and through our COVID crisis and other things, the election, you've exposed to the people how corrupt our system is, and we need to make a change. And people are starting to wake up. And I see this with our particular meetings, but I have a brother in Pennsylvania where he has a similar group that started off about 6 months ago. They grew so rapidly that they now have to have 2 meetings because the hall that they meet in has they've outgrown it, so they can't get everybody in. So they now split up and have 2 meetings a week to do the same thing. So
that's awesome.
I hope I answered the question.
So, Bob, what's the best advice you could give the people that they could do for a voter to to make a difference? What's the best advice you could give them?
Probably pay attention to current events. Definitely come to a Focus on America group meeting and get some information. And then also, anytime there is a forum, try to attend. It only takes an hour or two plus travel time. And there's an awful lot of information you can glean from listening to those candidates face to face and taking some of the generic questions, but also, for example, our gubernatorial debate. We ask questions well beyond what you see on TV and what forum questions were being held. So you do have, as an individual voter, you do have to do some work yourself and not rely on other people.
Well, that's what we've said to begin with. We wanted to present the truth as we know it and present the information and make an informed voter at the polls so that when they get to the polls, they can make an informed decision that they feel is right for them, because the person that represents my values may not necessarily be yours, although we agree on most things. There may be differences that we are unaware of until we become that informed voter. And that's okay. That's part of the process that makes our system so great. So thank you for sharing that. And as you mentioned, we did start in 2020. So it's been over 2 years that we started with just a handful of people meeting because we were just tired of the shutdowns. We were tired of the things that are going on. So we met with 8 to 10 people in a Panera Bread, and then it turned into having 80 to 100, and we have members all across the state that track us, that are signed up for our emails, that stay in touch with us even if they can't attend the events. So it's very exciting to see our fellow citizens to come in and stand alongside us, because it is so important to have their strength in numbers. And if we stand together, there's nothing that we can't do. So Sarah Ann, back to you. Why don't you tell us that, and then we will wrap it up.
One of the, I think, important things, or one of the most helpful things, is to have the bills broken down for us, the way that you do and the way that we work to have people understand what are in the bills. It's kind of overwhelming if you go to Legiscan and you pull up the bills that are being introduced into a session. There's hundreds of them. There's so many that it's hard to really understand which ones are important and which ones are just absolutely completely unnecessary. And the ones that are important, it's helpful to know why they're important and what we can do as an individual to talk to our representatives or our senators to get bills passed and to communicate that way. So I think it's really one thing that I've been really impressed with is being able to have that information about the particular bills that are important to protecting our constitutional rights.
And then we do have people say, well, I've already called, I've done this. Does it really make any difference if I've already called once? Both of you were in Montgomery. Both of you have heard legislators speak. So if you don't mind, Sarah Ann, share briefly what you've learned to encourage people to continue to make those calls, to continue to send those emails, to continue to just be involved all the way around. And then Bob will do that, and we will close out.
It absolutely makes a huge difference. The more you email, the more you call, the legislators become very aware that they're being spoken to, and they're being spoken to very loudly by their constituents. And the more emails they get, and the more phone calls they get, the more pressure on them to do the right thing. It's very difficult when you have legislators that are taking money from PACs and lobby groups, and they think, oh, well, that's all I have to do, and I'll do what they want me to do. But when they start hearing from their constituents by the hundreds and thousands repeatedly, it puts a lot of pressure on them in the hot seat to actually start to consider doing the right thing. So it is helpful, and it is, and that's come straight from legislators saying, yes, me getting 1,000 emails in my inbox, or 500 emails in my inbox made me aware that there was an issue out there that I didn't realize there was an issue before.
Or perhaps one that they were trying to ignore, whichever the case may be.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I would ditto what Sarah Ann said. And one thing I did learn going down there is that I learned that the last group of people that our representatives want to hear from are their constituents. They don't want to hear from us. And when we did go down this very last time, they were so afraid of us that they adjourned early, and all of them left town, or they were hiding somewhere in town. They did not want to meet with us. And that told me that they were more interested in doing what the lobbyists want to do and not what the people who voted for them wanted. And that was very disheartening. Then one other thing I wanted to mention too, Rebecca, do you want to give a plug for our new group that's now meeting in Birmingham, and how are we expanding?
Absolutely. We do have, our next meeting is our monthly meeting. We meet the third Saturday of every month. And in Madison, we meet at Black Patch Distilling. And now we are meeting in Alabaster at a brewing company there. You can follow us on Focus on America. We have a public page on Facebook. On Instagram, we have a private page on Instagram. You can also go to focusonamerica.us and see all the events that we have upcoming. And you can also sign up for our newsletter there, where you'll get notifications of the who's, what's, whens. We actually have a meeting coming up soon in Guntersville. We have one this coming Saturday in Guntersville. So it's expanding, it's growing. If you would like to start one in your area and you're listening to this, just reach out to us through our website at focusonamerica.us. We'll be happy to get you plugged in, get you started. We'd love for you to join us and fight for our freedoms together, because together we are definitely better. And one of the legislators recently told me, you guys are making a name for yourself down here. And he goes, it's kind of like, think of it shining a light on a bunch of cockroaches, because when the light's shining on them, what do? They scatter and run. And we hope some of them stay. We hope some of them scatter and run home. And we hope that we will be able to work some of those cockroaches out for the next election cycle. And it won't be easy. It won't be overnight. But any battle worth fighting and anything worth having is worth the extra effort. And we think about what our forefathers gave up so that we could be here today. To me, that's compelling. And my grandfather told me several times over my life, he goes, Rebecca, it's just as wrong to know you should be doing something and not do it as it is to do the wrong thing. So that it's not that we don't all have lives to live. It isn't that we would rather be doing other things, but this is no longer an option for us. We have to stand up for ourselves, for our future generations. We have to be able to just give up a little bit of our time and effort and our conveniences, or we'll have no conveniences in the future. Guys, thank you both for joining us. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for what you do, for spreading the news. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before we close out?
No, not really, but I would encourage anybody who is interested in politics and making Alabama a better state to get involved with Focus on America. We have a plethora of information to help you out and become a better informed voter.
Thank you, Bob.
I agree completely.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys who are going to be listening to this. Please get involved. Check us out at focusonamerica.us. Join forces with us, and let's take Bama back, and then we'll take back Washington. Thank you both. Have a good day.
See ya.